Good afternoon and welcome to ARMA's EPR webinar, Introduction to Extended Producer Responsibility. In this session, we will cover the foundation of extended producer responsibility. My name is Alana Yim, and I'm the Chief Communications Officer for Canadian Strategy Group. It is my pleasure to serve as your facilitator for ARMA's EPR webinar series, and I would like to start us off with a land acknowledgement. ARMA works with Albertans from all areas of our province and acknowledges the Indigenous peoples who lived among and traveled through the land in the area currently known as Alberta. The relationship that peoples of Treaty 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10, Alberta's Métis and Inuit people, have with the land is founded on a deep respect for the environment. This connection forms the foundation of our responsibility and vision of inspiring a future without waste. Before I turn it over to the ARMA EPR team, just a few housekeeping items to cover. As we are mindful and respectful of everyone's time, registrants will notice that your audio has been turned off. We ask that you use the Q&A function to submit questions you may have and encourage you to do so as they come to mind. We have ARMA's EPR team members as well as subject matter experts with us today who will answer questions as they come into the Q&A and chat windows. And then at the end, when we have time for Q&As as well, that the team will address verbally as well. So today we've got 3 presenters that will be going through the webinar. That's Ed Guggenheimer, CEO of ARMA, Gabby Betts, Executive Director of EPR, and Annie Lam, Change Lead. And online, you'll see, or we have Kim Tykerobe, Manager of Compliance, and Victor Dong, who is the Director of EPR Operations and Change Optimization, as well as 2 subject matter experts with us who will help answer questions as they come up. And that's Peter Hargreave, ARMA's consultant of Policy Integrity, and Nahani Falenz, ARMA's legal consultant. So if the team is if the team is unable to get to questions or in time in today's session, they will definitely follow up afterwards as well. And that will continually update the EPR FAQs on the ARMA website as well. If stakeholders and registrants have seen, it'll just continue to expand. So your questions today are definitely very appreciated. Lastly, just a reminder that webinar sessions are being recorded and will be made available on the ARMA website afterwards, so that people can go back and watch it. And with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Ed. Over to you, Ed.
Thanks, Alana. I really appreciate the introduction. I think these productions have been fabulous. Thanks for your hard work. We're here just basically to give you a brief overview of our EPR program as we know it and understand it today. And then we can go to the next slide. As you know, currently, EPR is a program that hasn't been seen in our province ever, and this is the first time we'll see a program like it. But EPR is a new regulation that helps Alberta shift the focus and responsibility of recycling from local governments or communities and taxpayers to producers that create the material that we're trying to recycle. The model is supposed to shift producers' responsibility to them as opposed to the municipalities who sort of been servicing their constituents over the past. It's an approach that recognizes that producers are actually better positioned to influence product design and make strides towards a circular economy to maximize the use of valuable resources. Next slide, please. So working with the government of Alberta, we have been supporting a government-made EPR framework that will help us and our partners to do even more to reduce waste and make our province a more attractive place for investors. EPR regulation supports basically 2 product streams at this point in time, and that's all that's been contemplated by the regulation. It's single-use products, packaging, and paper products we call PPP, and hazardous and special products, HSP. So ARMA, has been a steward for a great number of years, over 31 years, running stewardship programs. So we didn't actually have all the expertise that we used to have or that we needed to run an EPR program. So we had to start hiring and recruiting, and you've heard that we've got some specialists and experts on the line. But I have my own experts, and this is our EPR team. You've heard Gabby Betts numerous times, and you can hear others from my team, Annie and And Kim and Victor, they've all been fabulous. So you're going to see more and more of us if you aren't already sick of seeing us on webinars and other presentations, etc. But this is a small and mighty team that's actually been putting together the program for my organization. So big hand and round of applause for them for sure. So the roles associated with EPR are different from the roles that ARMA stewardship programs have today. It's important to distinguish the role of government versus the role of ARMA. And this slide sort of tries to illustrate that concept. So the Government of Alberta's Environment and Protected Areas Ministry, they determine the goals and outcomes and the direction related to the designated materials. They also maintain legislative EPR framework and policy direction to support intended outcomes. They oversee the performance of my organization, ARMA, in its oversight mandate, and they enforce contraventions against the act or regulation. On the flip side, ARMA, as an oversight authority, we're here to make sure we develop and maintain bylaws, operational policies that align with the government's framework, and support implementation of ongoing operations of an EPR system. We're here to ensure that we deliver a level playing field, something that's not foreign to us. We try to do that in our stewardship programs as well. We're here to develop and maintain a registry system. We call it ARMA Connect to manage registration and reporting. We're here to engage with stakeholders like yourselves with a focus of oversight operations and outcomes in relation to the designated materials. We're here to educate and inform impacted stakeholders on their roles and responsibilities within the system through strategic communication efforts. We're here to establish processes and escalating measures to compel compliance, referring cases to the minister only when we've done everything we could possibly do to resolve the issue. We're also here to design appropriate performance measures and assess the performance of the EPR system with the objective of continuous improvement to achieve higher environmental outcomes over time. We aren't going to get it right the first time, maybe not the second time, maybe not the third time. So it is an iterative process. And we're also here to report on the overall health of the system and keep the ministry informed of issues that may concern government. So our approach, as we work to stand up the EPR oversight body to support Alberta's EPR regulatory framework, we've actually been drawing on insights from BC and Ontario and other jurisdictions to help shape our Alberta-made solution. We are different and we need to be able to flex with that difference here in Alberta. We remain committed to working with a broad range of producers, responsible organizations, processing facilities, and communities, our stakeholders. And we're confident we'll create a system that works with a smooth and achievable EPR implementation process. Our goal is always trying to make things as easy as possible. As well as the government has always talked about red tape and red tape reduction. That's part of the process that we've been following as well. We see there's opportunities in doing so to make things much easier and accessible. So if we do things right for PPP, Alberta Recycling Collection Services will be accessible to both single-family and multifamily homes across the province. For communities that already have recycling programs in place, the responsibility associated with costs will transition from taxpayers to producers underneath this EPR program. And for HSP, all communities that already participate in EPR programs will have access to recycling depots and collection events, providing convenient options for responsible disposal and recycling of hazardous and special products. So I think with that, it's probably a logical time for me to step away and let somebody much better at this take the wheel. And I'm going to hand it over to Gabrielle.
Thank you very much, Ed, and thank you everyone for coming today. So the Alberta EPR system recognizes 4 principal stakeholder groups, each with a unique role and timeline for registration in the EPR system. Communities are defined by the regulation and include cities, towns, villages, municipal districts, specialized municipalities, improvement districts as per the MGA, special areas as per the Special Areas Act, settlements as per the Métis Settlements Act, and Indian reserves. Registration for this group began on October 2nd, 2023, and communities are asked to detail their current services for PPP and HSP materials on the community registration form, such as the existence of recycling programs, the types of recycling and waste pickup, and the range of materials currently being recycled in that community. ARMA has been engaging with community groups and doing webinars like this because it's really important to us that we support communities as much as possible across Alberta. And we've really been enjoying getting to know everyone as we've gone out to your various meetings and done virtual meetings and webinars as well. The second stakeholder group is the producer responsibility organizations. You'll hear us call them PROs. Their registration started on October 23rd, and a producer responsibility organization is an organization appointed by a producer to act as an agent on behalf of the producers. One of its roles is to provide support to multiple producers regarding registration and reporting obligations. In the Alberta context, a PRO must be not-for-profit and cannot be affiliated with an entity or individual that provides recycling services or waste management services for designated materials. Now, the third stakeholder group is, of course, producers. So producer registration will open on November 27th, 2023. The primary responsible party is the brand owner residing in Canada. If absent, the next in line is the importer based in Alberta, followed by the retailer. And ARMA has designed a really straightforward registration process for all of these stakeholder groups. And so especially for communities, Annie will take us through that today. But one of the priorities we've had is really to make things as simple and as user-friendly as possible. And finally, we don't want to forget the fourth stakeholder group. So that's the processing facilities. And their registration opened on October 16th, 2023. This group handles the receipt, recycling, downcycling, treatment, disposal, or export of designated materials. They must not have affiliations with a PRO, and they are asked to provide basic information regarding material types, processing methods, facility locations, and the capacity at each location. So now we'll take a look at the system at a glance. So currently producers supply materials to consumers, and after use, it is the community that bears the cost and responsibility of managing the waste. In this traditional system, the producer's role ends once the materials are sold, disconnecting them from the post-consumer phase of their products. In contrast, the EPR model makes producers accountable for their products throughout the entire life cycle, including post-consumer waste management. This shift in responsibility also moves the financial burden from communities to producers. EPR is designed to motivate producers to improve the efficiency of the material collection to meet recycling targets and to be innovative in product design to minimize waste. A PRO manages the collection on behalf of multiple producers through a centralized system, enhancing the process's efficiency. This slide shows that the shared collection system could include curbside pickup for individual homes, bin collection for multifamily complexes, and drop-off depots. A producer responsibility organization would take on the cost and coordination of this system for the producers, and the PRO would also work with the material processing centers to make sure that the materials are dealt with properly according to the goals set out in the regulations. Now we're going to talk about the transition to EPR for communities. This next slide illustrates the key aspects of the EPR transition and the different parties that communities may be connecting with. So in terms of registration, ARMA is here to support communities interested in registering for EPR. So please call us anytime, email us, invite us out to a virtual meeting. We're always happy to connect and support. As the oversight body, we facilitate the collection of relevant information about your community and convey this information to producer responsibility organizations. The registration may be completed by the community or by a community authority, such as a waste commission. In the case of a community authority registering on behalf of one or more communities, a registration application will need to be completed for each individual community that is being registered. The community authority will need to obtain sign-off on a form provided by ARMA to document a community authorizing the community authority to act on their behalf. If a community is part of a waste commission, they may choose to have the waste commission register on their behalf, or they can register on their own. Only one completed registration form, one for PPP and one for HSP, is required from each community. In terms of collection, the PRO will use the data collected during the community registrations to understand the collection needs of each community and to plan a collection system that best serves the entire province. Communities should expect to engage directly with the PROs to either transition existing collection services or establish new ones. With respect to processing, PROs will arrange for agreements with processing facilities to properly recycle and manage collected materials to meet the regulation requirements. And in terms of promotion and education, producers with PROs will be responsible for this component, and they will work with communities on developing effective promotion and education plans that are suitable for the unique needs of each community. We will now talk about some implementation scenarios. So we'll go to the next slide. In the first scenario, we look at communities with existing PPP recycling collection services. Communities with existing services can start receiving collection under the EPR program from April 1st, 2025 as part of phase 1. To be included in this initial phase, make sure to please complete your registration by December 31st, 2023. With respect to the service standards in this scenario, the EPR Common Collection System will initially match the service in the community as of November 30th, 2022. For example, a community that has curbside waste and curbside recycling services can anticipate curbside PPP service on April 1st, 2025. A community that has existing curbside waste collection and depot recycling can anticipate depot PPP recycling on April 1st, 2025 under phase 1. And under phase 2, which begins October 1st, 2026, these communities will see a service enhancement as their collection services align to the waste services standards. Therefore, if curbside waste is offered, the community can expect curbside PPP by October 2026. We recommend that communities already providing recycling collection services engage in discussions with a PRO to review collection standards, the details of your community operated service providers, and any current service agreements that you may have. While we've provided some initial questions in this slide, every community has its individual needs and concerns. Please consider any additional questions that can help clarify the potential advantage or challenge specific to your community when having your discussion with a PRO. If you are a waste commission with current collection infrastructure, such as a MRF, and wish to provide services under EPR, you may wish to register with ARMA as a processing facility and begin discussions about the existing infrastructure with a PRO. This conversation extends beyond ARMA's purview and would be a business arrangement between the commission and the PRO. Now, if we take a look at the second scenario, for PPP, we look at communities currently without recycling services. So these communities will start receiving recycling collection services in phase 2, which starts on October 1st, 2026. The PPP collection methods will align with the existing waste collection standards in these communities. Specifically, if the community provides curbside waste collection, PPP will also be curbside. If the community uses depot-based waste collection, then PPP will be collected at depots. Regarding multifamily residences, where a private contractor hired by building owners or managers is currently providing waste and recycling services, these multifamily properties may be integrated into the EPR Common Collection System. This inclusion depends on the collaboration of the building owners and managers. Such multifamily dwellings will be eligible for service in phase 2 starting in October 2026. Again, for communities identified in this scenario, we suggest that you consult with a pro regarding collection standards and strategies for promotion and education. Given that PPP services will be a new addition, understanding how the pro plans to handle communication and resident education could be particularly beneficial. Our final scenario is HSP recycling services in communities. Under EPR, HSP collection standards vary based on the community size. The slide illustrates what this really looks like. So for communities with a population over 125,000, one permanent depot per 125,000 residents is required. So if you have a community of 500,000, your community requires 4 permanent depots based on the community size. For communities with a population between 10,000 and 125,000, 1 permanent depot is required. Communities with a population between 1,000 and 10,000 people would receive 1 collection event annually. And communities with fewer than 1,000 people would receive 1 collection event per year upon notice. And this notice is activated by expressing interest through registration in EPR with ARMA. And again, in this scenario, it is advisable to discuss current collection standards, community-owned depots, and existing service contracts with a pro. The Extended Producer Responsibility Program represents a substantial opportunity for Alberta communities. For communities with existing recycling services, the operational cost of these services will be transferred to producers under the EPR program. And this shift is expected to alleviate the financial burden on your community, potentially reducing utility or tax levies associated with waste management. The funds saved could then be redirected to other valuable community initiatives. And for communities without existing recycling services, EPR will introduce the advantage of recycling services in your community that currently does not have them. So I'll now pass the presentation over to my colleague Annie, who is going to walk us through the community registration form and procedure.
In this next segment of the session, we'll discuss the community registration form. So the first step for communities to do is to pre-register on the online registry ARMA Connect. So for communities registered in an electronics or paint collector under ARMA's stewardship programs, the login on the left will be quite familiar. For communities not yet involved, you can create a new account in a few simple steps. So after logging in with your account, scroll to the EPR section and click Register in a new role, and then select Community as your role to pre-register in. Once you're pre-registered, you will see a thank you screen and then the link to the registration application form to download. So make sure you save a copy here. The same form download link will also be included in a welcome email sent to you. And since it's generated automatically by the system, sometimes it might get stuck in your spam folder. So make sure you check in there if you don't see the email. Now that we have reviewed access to the form, let's take a closer look at some of the details in it. And for the purpose of today's walkthrough, I'll highlight some of the key items in the form. So this is the form here, and this form will come in the format of an Excel file with multiple tabs. And we'll start with PPP here first. So on this first tab, 0, Intro, we will start with the background information for your review. So you can click, after you have reviewed all the information on here, you can go ahead and click the Start arrow and move on to the next tab. Under tab 1, Contact Info, we want to start with the name of the community. And then after that, you'll be asked for some contacts in your community. So the purpose of identifying these roles is to help connect pros to the right individuals for further conversations about the different aspects of servicing the community. So first here we have the primary contact. So this is someone that can speak to the registration and direct specific inquiries as needed. Next, this is the waste management contact. So this is someone who supports waste management services. For the community contact, this is a signing officer within the community, such as a CAO or city manager. And finally, for the promotion and education contact, this is the best person to speak to about promo and education of the residents. And in any case, if any of these roles are the same person, simply indicate that being the case. On tab number 2 is the community and population. So this page is to gauge the size and scale of the community. So if we look at highlight here under 2.2, we have the number of this is for the count of the residential premises. So this would include single family dwellings and the number of multiple family dwellings, which refers to the number of units in the apartment. And then on this field over here, this is the number of buildings which has the dwellings within it. In section 2.3, we then also are looking for the number of residential premises that has recycling services. Dwellings serviced by side or rear loading collection vehicles refers to curbside collection. And then here we also ask for the dwelling service by front and loading collection bin vehicles, which are the collections that are sharing a collection container set for a front end bin. And then additionally, all the dwellings that would use depot collection as their primary option would be indicated here in this field. Moving on to our next tab with the PPP services. This page is to further detail the community's current PPP service. So for 3.1 and 3.2, you're indicating if the residential premises receive curbside collection and depot collection respectively. So if both your answers are no, you can go ahead and skip this step. But if not, we're going to continue along on our form here. So if you do provide the PPP service, please provide the maps and further details to understand where the residences are serviced. So on this form, you can list the files you plan to upload with this submission. So for communities with existing services, this information is important since it will provide an understanding of locations and delivery methods that would need to be matched under phase 1. Okay. On this next page here, tab 4, garbage services, this page is structured similar to the prior tab, but here we ask for the same information but with maps for garbage services. The information here will be key for communities that currently have PPP depot service and curbside waste. So as a part of phase 2, a PPP service delivery method will align with waste services. Here on tab 5, we have the depots for PPP. So if the community has depots, please complete this and list and provide the location, operating details, and the accepted materials. On tab number 6 here with designated materials, this page helps estimate the annual quantity of materials collected and what is currently accepted by the communities. For the attachments, please list them here. And then finally, we have the tab 7, which is a file upload. So once you're complete, save your file and click the link indicated here to submit your final registration package to ARMA. It should be included in the complete, what should be included is a complete form and any attachments that you have indicated on the prior tabs. So now I'm going to switch over to the HSP form. It is to preface, it's very similar to PPP, but has a few less tabs requiring residential premise information due to the use of the depot network rather than curbside collection. So we'll just focus on the tabs that are different. So on tab 0 here, the introduction information, this is the same, as is the contact information requirements. Next, we have this population tab, and it's fairly straightforward as well. And then for tab 3 here, we have the depot information, similar again. So this will be for the depot information and the acceptability of HSP products. Additionally, you can indicate if the HSP roundups events occur in your community, and then if so, how many. In this Tab number 4 is for designated materials. This again helps estimate the annual quantity of materials collected along with a field to describe how the materials are currently handled. And once you're done, you can go on to the file upload link and submit this file through to us through this online platform. Okay, so that concludes the form portion. So we have done a high-level walkthrough of the registration application form today. So for a more detailed guidance document, head on over to the EPR section of our website. And in the current banner, there's a quick link directly to the community registration procedure, which has more of the details of the form that we had reviewed today and can aid you in your registration process. So with that, I'll hand things over back to Alana to move on to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. So yeah, with that said, we've got lots of time for questions. So there are a couple of questions that have come into the Q&A chat. So what I'll do is I'll read them out, and the team will. Oh, I just clicked with my screen. And the team will address it as soon as I just pull up the quick Q&A again. All right. So the first question is regarding HSP collection, community sizes for depot versus collection event. Would an existing depot be supported if run by a community authority where the communities have an aggregated population greater than 10,000?
Sure. Thank you so much, Andrew, for this question. It's a great one. So the government intention is really to match the services as they exist currently, or as of November 30th, 2022. So certainly if this is what's happening already in the community, then that will be something that you will talk to the pro about when those conversations begin.
Thank you, Gabby. Next question, for registration, if a municipality such as a county provides recycling for their residents and another municipality partners with the county on a fee-for-service basis, are 2 registrations necessary or just 1 for the county?
That's another great question. Thanks so much, Andrew. So each community does need to register within our system, but there can be delegated authority where, for example, a waste commission or another party does register on behalf of a community. In these cases, we have a form that will be signed by both the community as well as the delegated party that we will keep here in our files at ARMA. And so that's not a problem if the community wants to register or if a delegated authority does. The main point is that we do need a registration for each community, regardless of how things are operationalized.
Thanks, Gabby. The next question, I can probably answer that. Will you share this slideshow, actually? Gabby, will we share this slideshow? Yeah, we will.
Absolutely. And actually, all of our webinars will also be posted on our website. And this is a good time to pitch the website. So on our website, we have the regulation, bylaws, any completed policies, information about registration, and then we have all of the webinars that we've done so far. So we've done one for pros about a week ago, and that one's already up online, and we'll have this one up online as well by the end of the day. So if you talk to other communities that have questions about registration or this might be helpful for, please let them know to go to our website.
Thank you. Next question we have is, we have curbside recycling carts, but we also provide a large cardboard recycling bin at our landfill for large cardboard items. Will both be maintained?
And when you're asking, so this, I just want to make sure that we fully understand the question. Ryan, when you're asking, will both be maintained? Can you add a little bit of clarity perhaps in the chat here, just so we can make sure we provide the right answer?
While Ryan types his answer out, I'll read out the next question and we can circle back to the follow-up. Next question is, I'm currently registering and did not see a place for registering for processing. Did I overlook it?
Yes, that's a great question. So processing facility registration opened on October 16th. So if you go to our website, you should be able to find the registration. If you have any questions at all, though, please do just contact us here at ARMA, and we're happy to assist you with the registration. But it's a good question. There is a separate registration for communities. We opened it up to communities first because we wanted to make sure that we could support you as much as possible. And then we had a staggered registration process with the second opening up to processing facilities on October 16th. And then we opened up to pros on October 23rd. And we will soon be opening up for producers on November 27th.
So to add on to get Gabby's response, in terms of the registration system itself, the ARMA Connect system, where we had a screen where we have introduced, you can click here to pre-register. That's one role as a community. You'll actually be clicking the same button again. And then just when you're selecting your role, you'll want to select processing facility. So it will be the same spot in terms of the homepage on your registration on ARMA Connect, if that helps.
Thanks, Annie. Circling back to Ryan's follow-up, and I'll have the team jump in as they're prepared to, but the follow-up in that the original question, just for the rest of the registrants edification, is that we have curbside recycling carts, but we also provide a large cardboard recycling bin at our landfill for large cardboard items. Will both be maintained. And the follow-up clarification on that was that the curbside recycling is normal household recycling.
Okay, thanks so much for the clarification. And so the intention will be to maintain the service for the time being. That being said, once conversations happen between the community and the pro, that could look different in the future, depending on how those conversations go.
And Gabby, maybe for further clarification from Ryan, is that that the large bin at the landfill is for businesses and for large fridge boxes, like those sorts of large, and that the curbside recycling is residential. So not sure if there's any other clarification that you wanted to offer. Okay, thank you. Next question is, are there advantages or disadvantages to this being administered by the Regional Waste Commission versus each individual municipality? This is a great question. With regards to the pro, would that be the Regional Waste Commission?
This is a great question. And actually, we're doing a lot of presentations right now to different groups, and it came up this morning. There aren't advantages or disadvantages in going either route. So the important thing is for communities who are interested in participating in phase 1 to make sure that you do have a registration completed by December 31st, 2023. This can be done by the community. This can be done by a waste commission. We even know about one Indigenous community who has a consultant working with them who will be the delegated authority, for example, putting through their registration on their behalf. And so there's a few different ways to do this. All of them work. And a related question that came up this morning that might be helpful is if, let's say, a waste commission submits the registration on behalf of a community, then does that mean the Waste Commission is the only entity, having these discussions with the pro? No, that's not the case at all. So a Waste Commission might complete the registration on behalf of a community, and then when it comes time to have those conversations about what the recycling services will look like in the community, that's up to the community to determine who will be at the table. So it might be a mixture. It would most likely be a mixture of the community and the Waste Commission in this case, as well as other folks that they'd like to be at the table. And so you're really driving those conversations.
Thanks, Gabby. That was the last question that we have. We'll see if there's others that have questions coming in. We've got lots of time, so and then if there aren't, we do have another one. So a follow-up from Jocelyn is how does this work in small towns where there are no producers of these products that require recycling? How does this EPR system work, practically speaking, in these smaller areas?
Okay, so this is a really good question. So the EPR regulation really applies to all of Alberta. And so in every, we have a lot of variety in terms of the different communities across Alberta, but there are products and materials that are put into the environment by producers in all of these diverse municipalities and communities. And so absolutely EPR extends into those communities. What this will really look like will depend on the community. And so the first goal is to make sure that we, at minimum, are matching existing services that are provided in the community. And practically, how does this work? And so we mentioned in the presentation pros. And so pros are working on behalf of multiple producers. And so when a community registers for EPR, within about a couple of weeks, you can expect that the pro will reach out to the community, and they will both look at your registration form and the information that you've provided about your community and the current recycling and waste collection services. But then they will also come and talk to you to learn more. You know, what's working in the community, what might, be an opportunity for enhancement, and they will work with you to make sure that the materials put into the system are then collected. But it is, regardless of the size of your community, there will be products and materials in the environment that will be collected by pros from your community.
Yeah, can I add to that? Great answer. So the program EPR, it's not, it's sort of community size agnostic. You have a Canadian Tire in Edmonton. There's sales of that material here. And it doesn't matter if the sale occurred here or in your town or your village or your community. It doesn't matter. Those costs are sold anywhere in the province by producers for those materials cover the costs of all communities. So it's not specific to your community not having a lot of sales. It's based on sales across the entire province.
Thanks, Ed. We have more questions. This is fantastic. Next question. We are a waste commission that supplies recycling services to our 7-member munis. Are we going to be a pro?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. Thank you so much for bringing that up. So a waste commission is not considered a pro because they are representing, a number of communities, and it wouldn't matter if they're representing one community or 100 communities. So a pro, these are typically, these are businesses that are operating often nationally. So we see this in other jurisdictions already. If you look at the Ontario context, there's a variety of pros who are already operating there. The pros that we will see entering the system in Alberta will be not-for-profit and also not vertically integrated with the processing facilities. But great question. So no, the short answer is no, a waste commission will not be a pro or be considered a pro operating in Alberta.
Just a quick question. If that commission actually was operating a facility that was collecting and packaging materials for those different communities, they could actually, in essence, fall into a processing facility, depending on how they're structured. So definitely not a pro. I agree that maybe a processing facility, depending on the services they provide.
Thanks, Ed. Next question. If we don't ourselves offer hazardous material recycling as a municipality, but our local landfill does, how do we provide info for the HSP registration?
So I can jump in on that one. So as we have seen with a lot of different communities, there's a lot of unique features and characteristics of each of them. So the form that I had shown you today has some field that you can fill out, but we understand that there may be unique situations. So in those cases, we do want you to provide as much information as you can. And you can simply do that by providing us with written information, and then we could supplement that and consider it a part of your registration package. So ultimately, the objective is to provide as much information about your community, and that is the point about where your services are provided by would be helpful to include in your registration.
Thanks, Annie. Next question. In communities where there is curbside service but multi-family units are managed by the property managers and no bylaws to direct diversion or recycling, Will the property managers be required to register? How do we account for this in the community registration forms? And then to further clarify on the curbside, to clarify curbside for single unit residents, but not for family, multifamily units.
This is a great question. So as long as the community, so let's just talk about a sample community. So let's say a community, a mid-size, it could be any size community, registers within our system and currently has multifamily dwellings that do not receive collection services in any form from the municipality. By the community that they are within registering, they will be eligible to receive EPR services. So what this looks like is that the pro will work with the community to provide education materials as well as promote EPR and why this is a good thing for these privately managed multi-family dwellings. And it will depend on the cooperation of the owners or operators of these multi-family dwellings. But if a community, let's say the community of St. Albert, registers and they currently do not provide waste or recycling services to these multi-family dwellings, they will be eligible within the system. And so that's something that the pro and the community will work together on once the system becomes operational. One thing to note will be that these multi-family dwellings will receive services under EPR in phase 2. So this would be starting in October 2026.
Thank you. Next question. I noticed on your presentation tab 1 that your last contact person is a communications person. My registration form is only asking for 3 contacts. It did go by quick, so I might have seen something wrong. Does that make sense, team?
Yeah,
Question?
so I'll jump in on that one. So thank you very much for that question. And so this is an instance in which we had heard some feedback, and then we did make an update and add that section. So if you click on the link again in your email, you can access the updated version of the form. So for anyone, and this applies to anyone else that might have done your pre-registration and were very keen and did your pre-registration right on the first day, you might still have a dated version. But even if we had received your registration application already and that piece of information was missing, we would be able to easily follow up with you so that that information can be provided at a later date as well.
Thanks, Annie. Next question. So if the waste commissions just collect and do not process materials, what is their role as EPR is phased in and pro take over the responsibility of collection?
So thanks so much, Jocelyn. This is a great question. So in the EPR system, our best advice would be to reach out to a pro and see if the Waste Commission can still be a collector within EPR. So that would be a great conversation for you or the Waste Commission to have with a pro.
And Gabby, if I can just add to that, I mean, I think there's multiple different roles potentially. So you could be a service provider to and remain a service provider to that pro, whether that be for collection, whether that be for processing, that could be for assisting with communications for that pro. There may be some administrative functions. So I think there's multiple potential ways that different waste commissions may play different roles within the new structure.
Thanks, Peter. How do we get in contact with pros?
Okay, so one of the best ways for you to get in contact with pros at the moment is to complete your registration form. So once you do complete your registration form, then you will have pros reaching out to you and engaging in those conversations. The other way will be once pros are registered and activated within the system here at ARMA, we will be posting information about them on our website. But before we do that, again, we're currently accepting registrations from pros, and they do have to be not-for-profit and not vertically integrated, and then go through a legal review, after which they will be posted and formally activated on our website. But if you're curious to learn more about some of the pros, of course, you can take a look at what's happening in Ontario in the meantime. And some have been featured on webinars with us as well. You know, upon registration, you can expect that those who are activated will reach out to you.
And Gabby, I'm going to pose a question just as a follow-up to this one, because it touches on conversations that us as a team have had prior. Is I think the value, or and I might be framing this, I hope I'm framing this in a correct way, but is the value of selecting a pro from the list that registers. So I think to an earlier question a couple of days ago around discussion around can a community choose a pro that is not on the list?
So in terms of the EPR system being operational in Alberta, we will be registering pros who fit the criteria, and they must meet that criteria in order to operate within the Alberta context. So again, you know, we will be vetting them very carefully before having them included within the system. And so that will be important to be utilizing those pros that have been vetted by ARMA. And if you have any questions about this, I would suggest that you reach out to us here at ARMA. Happy to talk a little bit about that. I will say that some communities, we've been involved in lots of different meetings, and some communities have invited pros to come and talk to their community or their waste commission. We have seen some of that. We've seen some presentations by pros in the Alberta context, but it's a little bit premature for us to say exactly which pros will be operating in Alberta, because we're still accepting registrations and in the process of activating some.
Thanks, Gabby. Next question. How many PPP pros are anticipated to be contacting communities?
This is a really good question. Although we don't know the number, you know, we're not anticipating that there will be an enormous number of pros. And so those that we're aware of, I would say the number, you know, is definitely under 10 probably. So we're not talking about 100, but I really can't say because we have to wait and see which registrations come in. You can probably expect, my best guess would be under 5 might reach out to you and have conversations. Not sure if anyone from the team wants to jump in on this, but it's kind of a tricky question. It's hard to answer at this time. If you talk to me in about a month, I'll probably have a much better idea.
Next question. Will it be an issue if our depot does not have tonnage amounts for HSP? We only track how many containers are shipped out. This also goes for PPP. We do not separate our material. We have tonnage amounts for blue bags and cardboard only.
And I just want to clarify, I believe that this question is referring to the registration process, but I do want to verify. Alana, do you mind just, who asked this question? I'm just trying to take a look here.
Carol.
Okay. Carol, are you asking this question with respect to the registration process?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, so one of the things that oh, thanks so much, Carol. So one of the things that I am mentioning as we go out and talk to folks is please do your best to complete the registration, to provide the information that we're asking for throughout the registration process. So if we're talking about communities, you have a form to fill out, there's lots of fields. We do not want this to be a barrier to you registering. So please do your best, complete the information that you do have. If you have any questions while doing so, please reach out to the ARMA team. And you can, even if it's incomplete, you can please submit your registration form and we'll give you a call and try to work with you to complete the information as much as possible before it's passed on to the registered and activated pros. But this shouldn't be a barrier. And if you have questions or difficulty completing the information, just reach out to us and we'll work with you on a one-on-one basis.
Thank you. Next question. When will more information be coming out regarding the process? As I am aware, many private contractors who would become a pro, but they are very confused as to the process.
Okay, thank you very much, Ryan, for your question. Okay, so I think when you're talking about the private contractors, you might be referring to those who would like to be considered as processing facilities. If I'm wrong, please just add to the chat and I'll try to answer it. Information related to the processing facility registration is up on our website. We can also help you or your counterparts if they want to contact the ARMA office, and we'd love to talk to them and answer any questions that they have. But definitely contact us if there's confusion. If you can even write us an email, what we're doing, we're trying to be as responsive as possible. And so any questions that we receive, we both answer over email and then add to our FAQs on the website. And you can see distinct sections for the community, for pros, for producers, as well as for processing facilities. So I have a feeling you've got some good questions that we could provide answers to make sure that the clarity is out in the community that's needed.
Ryan, just to add to Gabby's comments, a pro or a producer responsible organization cannot provide a service in the system because it's conflicted. It's one of the pieces of regulation. So if you are talking about contractors, haulers, processors, processing facilities, they actually can't become a pro. They can provide services to a pro, but cannot be one and the same.
Thanks, Ed. Next question. We've got a couple minutes left. These have been really, really, really great questions. Can you help with differentiating a depot and a processing facility?
Sure, this is a good question, and it's come up a few times actually this week. And so some of the communities that we've been talking to might have a depot where they're simply collecting and maybe doing a bit of baling. In that case, you are not registering as a processing facility. Now, if we're talking about a community that has a MRF or one of those more formal processing facilities, then that community would very likely want to also register as a processing facility within the registration system for EPR.
Thank you. Next question. Will the costs of these requirements be passed on to consumers through the increased costs of consumer goods?
That's a really fantastic question. I'm not sure if maybe our EPR expert consultant, Peter, would like to comment. This is more of a general question about how EPR works, I think, in the kind of environment. So maybe, Peter, I'll pass this over to you just to provide any context you can, not to put you on the spot.
The cost to manage those materials will be internalized by those companies. So those companies will look at ways to improve their potential costs or reduce their potential costs. But I think as we look at EPR programs across the country with regards to packaging, there really is no evidence to show overall increase in packaging materials.
Thank you, Peter. That was our last question. It's 12:59, so just respectful of everyone's time. I think there were really fantastic questions here that I know that the ARMA EPR team will go back and shape and add additional FAQs to the roster coming out of this session. So if there are more questions or thoughts after this webinar that just inspire other questions, please certainly do email them into the ARMA EPR team, and they'll get back to you in a very timely manner. So with that said, I want to thank everybody for taking their hour out and joining us on this webinar. And look forward to, and we will let you know when the next one is, and remind folks of the next one. The next one is in December. But with that said, have a wonderful day, and yeah, have a wonderful rest of the day. Thanks, everyone.